There's something big that happened within Disney, and it's not being framed honestly if I gotta be real. You see, for years, Disney has been kind of skirting the edge of giving people what they wanted, while also making things that aren't exactly made for anyone but the mystical modern audience. This has gone on for years now, and now something is completely broken, and I don't know how they're going to fix this. But before we begin, let's thank the sponsor of this video, Game Boost. Let's be real, sometimes you want to buy a game, but you don't like paying full price, and that's where Game Boost comes in. Game Boost is an all-in-one service that brings everything you need to enjoy video games at premium discounts. From in-game currencies, game keys, and more, Game Boost uses verified-only users when it comes to these services. They're prioritizing safety and trust, ensuring that every payment is legit and nothing is a scam. They also have competitive pricing for game keys that have instant delivery upon purchase. You can use Visa, Apple Pay, it all works. You also get cash back on all purchases, which means the more you buy, the more you save as well. There's also instant 24-hour human support for any of your questions. You can snag games like Crimson Desert, as you can see, alongside games like Arc Raiders, Clair Obscur, and much more for deeply discounted prices. You can also buy full in-game accounts from any popular games if you want a head start, from Call of Duty, Roblox, PUBG, Fortnite, Valorant, and more, all entirely legit with secured purchases guaranteed. All this is designed to ensure you get the best experience possible with an intuitive interface, filter options, and more to make your shopping experience easy as it can get. Game Boost is also on Trustpilot, where only trusted gaming marketplaces are allowed to be as well, and Game Boost also has the ability to gift the keys you buy at a discount on PC as well, which can then be used on Steam, Ubisoft, Connect, Epic Games, and much more. So if you're looking for your next game to binge, want to top up your currency in a game, or want a certain item or cosmetic, Game Boost has you covered. Remember to use my code ENDEMION5 for 5% off your purchase. You can also click the link in the description box or pinned comment to access this exclusive offer as well. So if you've been waiting to play Crimson Desert or whichever other game, now's a good time to jump in. Thanks again to Game Boost for sponsoring this video, and now let's get back to it. So in case you don't know, Disney recently announced mass, and I mean massive, layoffs across multiple divisions within their company. As MoneyWise.com reported here, over 1,000 jobs have been slashed at the House of Mouse recently, and yeah, it's pretty devastating. Amongst those that were most of Marvel, as in the MCU's entire art division that got laid off, which makes absolutely no sense at all to me, considering that these people were in charge of creating the iconic looks of many of Marvel's biggest franchises that obviously led to billions of dollars at the box office. Wesley Burt, that was one of Marvel's key art designers in all of this, creating plenty of incredible high-fidelity art pieces that have been used for promotion all around the world when it came to promoting series like Marvel's Loki on Disney Plus, for example, and more. As seen here, Wesley posted how he was ironically laid off by Disney during these layoffs, within a boardroom that was plastered in his own artwork that he did on the Loki TV show, if you can believe that. That's an insanely disrespectful thing to do. I bet the person who laid him off, they probably didn't even know that Wesley did the art for that either. To them, Wesley was just another person that was meant to be let go to cut these costs. So Wesley wasn't some random guy. He worked on Black Panther, Avengers Endgame, Fantastic Four, First Steps, and he won 3 Art Director Guild Awards for excellence in production design. Either way, he was still laid off. The crux of this video, however, is placed mostly on how the internet reacted to the news of these mass layoffs, which I will get into later on, but there was also one guy named Josh Dawes who was laid off as well during all of this. As Josh Dawes said here in his now viral Ask Me Anything post on Twitter, which has 10 million views if you can believe it. So Josh worked at Disney for almost 13 years, and like many, were laid off as well. So where do people like The Critical Drinker and Nerdrotic and such come into this whole thing? Well, you see, Josh, like I said, did his Ask Me Anything. And once he started showing his belief system and how he followed certain people and enjoyed content from them, that's why this post has over 10 million views now. Because you see, Josh here is a fan of people like Nerdrotic and The Critical Drinker. In fact, he agrees with them on many points despite working at Disney. Well, not necessarily confirming it 100% because that's a minefield either way, but as seen here, Nerdrotic, for example, commented and Josh responded, saying that he was a big fan of his channel. And as the retweet says, they now suddenly don't feel bad that Josh was laid off because, oh, he's a fan of those people. You mean the guys who have that bigoted audience we hate so much? Well, now it's totally justified that this guy was laid off, right? One fan would ask Josh about Disney and their push of DEI, or diversity, equity, and inclusion within the company. Josh here says that this failed experiment peaked in 2020 and has trailed off ever since. Josh also states that the vibe within Disney is much better now, well, I mean, before the layoffs anyways. Then, in another viral tweet, someone retweeted something that Josh said, where Josh confirms that since the whole Trump guy got elected, that the whole DEI infrastructure within Disney has been largely replaced and toned down even further. But as this user who retweeted said, they were gonna feel bad about this guy's layoff, but uh-oh, he's someone who has opposing beliefs to them. So now suddenly, the side that always claims to be virtuous and loving is now celebrating that this Josh guy lost his job now because he follows people they don't like. As you'll come to see the further that we go in with this, the hypocrisy is going to be bouncing off the walls at some point during all of this too. Because what you're going to realize is that a lot of people are just flat out kind of evil, and they want anyone who doesn't agree with them to effectively be dead at this point. So Josh outs himself as both being a fan of Neurotic, the critical drinker, and believing that DEI was not a good idea for Disney, which that one shouldn't be controversial to anyone with a functioning brain, because it absolutely has been. Are you kidding me? Of course it has been. Recently at CinemaCon, that happened, and Kevin Feige, who runs the Marvel side of Disney, confirmed, as seen here, that Avengers Doomsday is directly following the events of Endgame, and that fans are pointing out from Feige's comments that the way that he framed it all, it made it sound like that Feige wanted you to just forget about everything that Marvel released post Endgame till now, because the majority of it didn't work at all. Ant-Man Quantumania was a bust, no one watched Miss Marvel, Ironheart happened I guess, and then some. Outside of that one Spider-Man movie and the Doctor Strange one where he delves into the multiverse, the majority of the MCU post-Endgame has, well, let's be real, not done well at all. For example, the Thunderbolts movie was the second worst performing Marvel movie, right behind the Marvels if you can believe it. And stuff like Fantastic Four First Steps technically flopped as well, so too did Captain America Brave New World. So naturally, Feige is just trying to damage control and say, movies? What movies? Nothing happened after Endgame. All that matters is that Doomsday is coming and Spider-Man, because that made over $1 billion, so that's still canon of course. The Marvels? What's that movie? An all-female superhero team? We never did that, you're crazy. We never made that movie, it was all a dream. Look, it's Doctor Doom, you know who that is. Anyway, if Josh confirming that the DEI structure in Disney was dying, Kevin Feige's own actions here confirm it even more if you ask me. Because if this stuff was working, it would keep happening, but it didn't. Remind me what happened to the Eternals and their future movies. Oh, they didn't happen either. Well, imagine that. One commenter would ask Josh about how the impact of people like Neurotic or Critical Drinker had on the overall direction of Disney's content strategy. As seen here, the user asked that, and Josh flat out stated that he thinks that the higher-ups at Disney realized that they were in the wrong and that they could not ignore the movement that was created by people like Drinker and more. Which I mean is true, because besides them and everyone else, including myself, we've all spoken on how these ideas really have kind of ruined a golden era of potential entertainment for activists pushing instead. I mean, while Star Wars' side of the equation here wasn't as heavily hit, as far as I can tell anyways, the truth is that what Disney ended up doing by pushing and chasing these DEI policies was that they created the worst possible feeling that you can achieve within any fandom, which isn't rage bait or sadness, but apathy. That is the single most devastating thing that you can conjure if you are in a position when you're making something. If your fans of your product, like say a Star Wars or a Marvel thing, are mad at you, at the very least, what this now means is that there are still people out there who are passionate enough to at least be angry to want to speak on the things that you still make. But once they enter that apathy stage, it's over. Star Wars has long since fallen into the apathetic pits of gray nothingness a long time ago. Because Disney, alongside Kathleen Kennedy, they kept constantly putting a chick in it and making her lame and all that over and over again. And all it did was lead to utter apathy, which many people, myself, Drinker, and everyone else have commented on plenty already because it's the truth. You still have a chance to bring people back if they're angry, but once apathy sets in, it's next to impossible because they don't care anymore. Marvel took longer to get there, but it too fell into that same apathy hole, just like Star Wars did too. So it's really no wonder why, as Josh said, that Disney is trying to move on from that stuff, because it didn't work. And if it did, well, we would be seeing it still. We would be witnessing those sorts of projects breaking big money numbers, but they didn't. Disney at CinemaCon recently also spoke on the movies that they had that were big money makers in the last few years, as seen here. On screen, as you can see during the presentation, you have Inside Out 2, Deadpool Wolverine, Moana 2, Lilo and Stitch remake, and Avatar 3. Do you notice something between these movies? None of these are very politically charged, dare I say old-fashioned to some degree even, not fully, but some degree. And do you also notice how the only MCU movie to break that $1 billion in a while is a vulgar R-rated movie about two straight white male heroes? And notice how nowhere on that list of billion-plus movies is anything named Star Wars. Gee, I wonder why that is. As winteriscoming.com said here, among other sites too, the next Star Wars movie, The Mandalorian and Grogu, is currently shaping up actually to be the single worst Star Wars related project released in theaters performance-wise for Disney yet. Yeah, it's apparently projected to do even worse than that Han Solo movie that also flopped, by the way. Again, before Disney could release anything Star Wars related, and people would show up in droves. Hell, I would go and see them. The fact that movies like Ant-Man of all things became so successful that they even spawned sequels was because at that point, Disney had the golden touch. They had the, goodwill of the audience that anything they would make would work and be great to see. But these days, that isn't always the case. Even though Doomsday is coming, the vast majority of what has been made isn't very good, can we be honest? I would even argue that the Daredevil Born Again series is nowhere near as good as the original Netflix series. That's what I think anyways. And unfortunately, I still haven't been convinced yet that it can measure up to the Netflix series in any meaningful way. But like I said, since this Josh Dawes guy outed himself as a fan of Nerdrotic and Critical Drinker and all the like, he is now free game, to be devoured by the so-called activist type that love all human beings, regardless of who they are, apparently. As seen here, one user said, "Why does Disney hate conservative Christians and pushing stuff down their throats?" And Josh states it's a small and vocal minority that want that, but that the majority of Disney workers are frankly normal. But look at the retweet from Miss Free Palestine over here. They don't feel bad that Josh lost his job now. In fact, they're happy that it happened to them. All because he's a Christian guy, who's also white. But God forbid, he also enjoys YouTube comment from the Critical Drinker and Nerdrotic. Oh my God, the horror. How could he? Someone with an opposing opinion to me in 2026? They might as well as be a Yahtzee. Because how dare they watch people that I disagree with? This is why companies are moving away from people like this. The Free Palestine kind of user account, not Josh anyways, because these sorts of people are honestly crazy. And they're actually more hateful than the so-called white Christian male demographic they demonize so much. Here's another user retweeting Josh Saws, the white Christian male ex-Disney worker guy, where they said this: "All you had to do was click on his profile to see this, and you wouldn't have felt bad in the first place." Ah, I see. So it's totally okay to feel sympathy for someone as long as they align 100% with your political and ideology beliefs. But the moment that someone exists that opposes that, well, then any harm or evil placed upon them is totally justified now. You see what I mean? Why would you want to cater to people like this when making your content at Disney or really anywhere else? These people have no morals. They're kind of just aimless. They're like hyenas in a pit that are starving to eat something or anything. They just want to be angry. They don't care what it's about. One user asked Josh how many Christians worked at Disney, where he confirms, as you can see here, that not a whole lot did, but more than you think. The fact that he says that like it's some sort of hidden information is pretty concerning, I can't lie. What do you mean you can't just openly say that you're Christian? What's the problem? But then again, this is Disney after all, located in California mostly, so I guess that makes sense. Either way, it's still messed up that the harassment at Josh didn't end there for openly stating that he's Christian, and a fan of content like Drinkers or Nerdrotic either, as this person said here with a GIF. Knowing that it was a straight white man that axed his job brings me so much joy. This is who Disney wanted to cater to. People who openly hate on others for their skin color like this and celebrate when they lose their jobs. Despite the fact that these people were responsible for the things that these other people enjoyed watching or consuming in the first place, by the way. You can't tell me that there isn't a rot in both these companies and the audiences themselves, because this is just disgusting, man. You hate a guy because, what, his skin is white? Really? But you like him if he agreed with you politically? What does that tell tell you. Here's another user with a Mickey Mouse gif where he's like dancing, saying that after seeing his profile, I'm glad he's unemployed. You see, you can jump through as many hoops as you want to. You can bend your knees until they break. It's never going to be enough to satisfy the so-called modern audience. Either way, no, you can't do it, dude. And how are we supposed to move on with not just entertainment, but culture when people like this exist? Because there is no compromising with them. They will dance on your graves and laugh hysterically, all because you didn't agree with them 100% of the time on every little thing. One user with a goofy username also worked at Disney and Netflix as an animator and came to Josh's aid. Dr. PP, great username by the way, said as seen here that when they worked at Disney, it was filled with diversity-based quotas that did start with good intentions. But they quickly snowballed and did more damage than good in the long run. As he says there, one of the reasons shows and studios shut down was because they weren't willing to speak to their audiences anymore. They were more interested in fulfilling the wishes of an activist few, who in the guise of diversity have instead expanded the diversity of mediocrity, and that is critical there. That is what has led to the huge problem, not only Disney I mean, but everything that we're facing these days. Because they are filling positions meant for amazing people with mediocre talent because they want to appease people like these users who were dancing and singing that Josh lost his job because, oh my word, he likes the critical drinker and neurotic, but that is the truth. You see, what these companies don't realize is that they created a beast that's going to take a lot of ammo and time and energy to fully destroy, because their own moronic policies and weaknesses led to the creation of such diabolical belief systems in the first place. It shouldn't matter if someone who works on something believes in this or that. I guarantee that you've enjoyed something that was made by someone who doesn't have any political beliefs or religious ones that are close to your own. The problem these days, however, is that the internet exists, so now people are more connected than ever, for better and worse. Now you know if someone opposes you, and it leads to a lot of friction on every side. And I'm not going to deny it's also hampered my own enjoyment of things too, that I am just as flawed as anyone that's watching this when it comes to this stuff. And I too have ignored or flat out refused to buy things due to the people involved and then some. I admit that. None of us are perfect. We've all made mistakes and we will continue to make more mistakes, don't you worry. But at the very least, I am willing to admit that I've made mistakes and am trying to fix myself. Whereas these people, the ones that are hating on anyone who likes a YouTuber they don't like these people honestly are kind of too far gone already. They are so lost in the monolith of ideas that they are next to impossible to pull out of these depths that they've willingly threw themselves into these days. Anyone who lost their job is a terrible thing, but it's fine because this guy is white or a Christian. Are we being serious? Although, to be honest, even if Josh was something else, let's say he was black or whatever, if he was still Christian or had the same belief system, these people would still attack him because, again, it's all or nothing for these people. But that's what a lot of content creators kept trying to say, is that when you cater to these people, like these who are hating openly like this, they still won't show up anyways, because if they did, then those phases of those failed Marvel movies, well, they would have done far better, wouldn't they? Ironically, the things they will show up for will be the same sort of things that fans of people like a drinker or more will too. Yet they won't admit that, even though they know it's true. But with Disney, these cuts are part of a bigger problem. In case you don't know, they already cut 7,000 jobs in 2023, which is about 3% of their overall workforce, which should show you just how large Disney is as a company, because that's a massive loss of talent right there. So while sure, maybe 1,000 jobs now is not nearly as much as before, it's still very bad because they keep decreasing the overall workforce and not increasing it. Apparently, it's all due to what they call a changing industry. This is corporate talk for people aren't showing up for the things that we make. But the alarming part here is that, like that first article I mentioned in this video showed, that most of the people laid off worked at Marvel, specifically across the art departments. They axed almost all the visual artists, which tells you, why would they do that? Apparently, it's because Disney's doubling down on AI. I guess they think they can just replace these artists with that AI and that'll be enough. There's apparently still a skeleton crew that's being kept there to overlook the designs and productions that do get made, but either way, it's still a massive blow. But Disney thinks this is the future, and I fear that it might just be another DEI push level extinction event that will also not work for them either. I fully expect the future of Marvel movies to be AI made to some degree. It's only a matter of time at this point. But either way, that doesn't fill me with confidence, and the fact that these people responded to Josh getting laid off as a good thing, simply because he likes and follows people like Nerdrotic or Drinker, like that should tell you something. That not only were people like Drinker right in saying that DEI was going to be the straw to break Disney's back, but that what's left in its place should be just as concerning now too. An automated art division forced to create the future of the biggest entertainment movie property in the business, where thousands of people who worked to create those worlds are now left jobless and not in control of it anymore. But I guess it's fine, because at least one of those people were a conservative white man, so there's a win in there somewhere, right? It's peak delusion. That's really what it is. As Variety reported here, the point is that Disney wants to streamline things, but I don't think it's going to go the way that they want it to. Disney CEO Josh D'Amaro said, as seen here in part of his letter to Disney employees, that he knows that this is hard, as you can see, but that this was done to manage the resources available and reinvest in the business that Disney has. Of course, it's not really hard for him. He's the CEO. He gets his millions in bonuses either way. But of course, like always, it's the workers who are going to pay the price and not the people who made those decisions in the first place. Again, even though Bob Iger and Kathleen Kennedy are now gone, the same things are still happening. These big companies just keep laying off more and more people because the culture is not being changed. Hoping that their future as automated AI and more will make up the difference, but where will that leave everything anyways? Like, I'm not saying that AI is bad. I know it's a tool, but you do still need real people making stuff to still progress your content further. Otherwise, all you're going to be pulling from is what already exists, and that's kind of worrying, especially from a company that ignored the pleas of fans and content creators for years, believing that they knew better when they clearly didn't. This is what people like a Drinker or myself tried to tell Disney and then some for years. You can produce all the content that you want. It will just lead to more fatigue if it's not good. You can't watch everything anyways if there's too much content. This is another reason why it ruined Marvel and Star Wars already. There was just way too much to consume, which lowered the quality. And that now led to budget tightening and projects now being delayed or reworked or removed entirely. Like, remember that Blade movie they announced years ago? We should be on Blade 3 already, yet we haven't even seen anything from that yet. But this weird narrative that you'll see form how the audience isn't there anymore anyways is also stupid because it's not right. The audience is still here. The problem is that the audience is not automatically loyal anymore, and they won't just show up because of some logo on the screen, not for Marvel, Disney, or anyone. Nowadays, people only show up if it's worth their time, and let's be real, that's a much harder standard to meet these days. This isn't just Disney, I know, it's all entertainment. What a lot of these studios and game publishers even are now realizing is you can't flood the market forever. You can't just rely on your brands or assume that you're going to get engagement no matter what. But most importantly, you can't treat every project like content on a conveyor belt, because the audience, they can tell the difference. And that may be because of content creators calling these things out, but it's true. It is what it is. So what these layoffs mean is that the system is trying to correct itself. The era of the unchecked expansion, if you will, is officially over, which is why the boom of the 2020s is now leading to less spending. There's more focus and prioritizing what actually connects, hopefully. The problem, however, is that a lot of what's being made was still made out of sync, and clearly Disney believed that they could just ignore the content creators' opinions no matter what their size, and now they're reaping what they sowed because they wouldn't listen. Disney's not going to collapse, of course not, but they are going to be recalibrating, and that is happening because something fundamental has changed the way that this all goes down now, right? The audience has stopped following them blindly. Now they're actively choosing, and yeah, I guess to a degree, you can blame me, Drinker, whoever you want to. We're all to blame, right, to some degree, but it's a good thing actually. It's because of content creators actually standing up to this sort of thing and not just swallowing the slop that you're not going to get the Marvels 2, Eternals 2, or Miss Marvel Season 5 and then some. Instead, they're looking at what works, right? Deadpool, Wolverine, Spider-Man, Avengers, and going, yeah, let's do that instead. We tried to warn you company heads for years that this wasn't going to work the way you wanted to. You didn't listen. And now your hubris is leading to thousands of job losses, and including people like Josh and artists like Wesley who did a lot of your artwork and then some. So these companies are now paying the price, and they have to adapt, otherwise they're going to be cooked. But again, we tried to tell you this wouldn't work. You didn't listen, and now, well, I guess reality is going to hit hard then. And I don't think the people in charge are going going to like it one bit, but they have no one but themselves to blame in the end anyways. But this is not any one content creator's fault, but the response to that Josh guy's termination, because he dared to follow and like the content from people that these modern audience types hate, that should tell you everything. Remember to use my code Endymion5 for 5% off your purchase. You can also click the link in the description box or pinned comment to access this exclusive offer as well. Thanks again to Game Boost for sponsoring this video, and now let's get back to it, which is that we're not out of this by a long shot and that we are winning. So keep your head on a swivel, keep questioning everything you see, keep noticing these patterns, and follow your gut. The companies might hate you, the modern audience might too, but your soul at least will be happy that you did. But thanks for watching. What do you think? Let me know. Subscribe if you'd like to, and I'll see you guys next time.